You big talker, 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 talk show. You big talker, 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 talk show.
Welcome to the You Big Talker Talk Show. I'm Eleni, your host.
And I'm your co-host, Rob.
I just wanted to thank Adam and Sarah Poncho for tuning in, for subscribing, for your comments. I also want to thank Alyssa from Aikido, and Caitlin, Bonnie, and my brother Lucky for your comments. So when we last spoke, we were in Philly. It was December, and now we are in Las Cruces for the winter. And I like this idea of, if you're able to, and which we're fortunate to be able to go to another place and change up your living environment, because I think it sort of provides you a contrast to what you do every day, gives you a way to think about things a little bit differently.
And then appreciate the space that you live in full time, you know. Yeah,
right. Because you leave it, it makes you appreciate it. You know, like when Rob left for a month, I appreciated him more, but I still like him when he's around all the time, like here in our studio.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Okay.
We're in actually a real tiny...
Adobe casita.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very tiny, as in no separate bedroom. The other thing that's changed, we now have a new president, and I just want to say I was just so excited during the inauguration and just that change, and just felt this kind of tremendous relief, and I hadn't realized how much I was bottling up inside until the inauguration and just, you know, crying. And yeah, it was a joyful moment. Is it perfect? No, but I just want to take a moment to tell anyone who kind of like shit on the joy people were feeling about this positive step. Let people feel joy. And yes, we all know there's work to be done. That doesn't mean you don't celebrate the steps. It's like if your little baby takes a step, you're not like, hey, you're not walking, idiot, and push them down. Yeah. Anyway, just my 2 cents. We've been doing lots of hiking and camping, and it's been fun. Las Cruces is kind of a smaller town, so there's not necessarily a ton of stuff to do, and it's COVID. So outdoors is the solution, and we go...
that was the main reason why we came here, really.
Yeah. How would you say the people are when you meet them?
They say howdy. It's kind of like a lot of people I talk to say this area is like Palm Springs. It's a lot of retirees hanging out, and it's like between 60 and 70 degrees. And in the wintertime, so, you know, you can't beat that.
Yeah, it was actually kind of hot today. We did camp once. It was freezing because I didn't put the tarp on, but I wanted to see the stars. You know, you can see so many stars here.
Yeah.
And I was watching the Big Dipper all night as I had insomnia. It moved from one end of the tent to the other.
She was shivering and her teeth going...
It was really cold. Rob was snoring.
It's comfortable. We had a heater, we just didn't use it.
Because the tarp was on. Yeah, a lot of bad mistakes. Anyway, that was fun. So the thing that's beautiful is most of the hikes are within, you know, 20-minute drive. Very close. The thing I don't like so much about Las Cruces so far, and maybe this is true of a lot of places, is just a lot of cars, a lot of big trucks, car culture, big streets. It's not like Philly where you feel like you're in a village, walk around. And then I came across, while I was walking on one of these streets, a term called petromasculinity, which I think sums things up very nicely for this type of thing I'm talking about with the big trucks. But there's an official paper I'll link on this topic, and what they say is as the planet warms, there's a new authoritarian movements in the West, and they're embracing a toxic combination of climate denial, racism, and misogyny. So guys with big trucks.
Or people with... loud-sounding vehicles that spoot out.
Oh, you're talking about... so we were driving and we came across a car. It sounded like gunshots. This was on purpose. And it had, what?
Blue
different colored lights
coming out of the exhaust, I guess. It was like, it sounded like the thing needed a tune-up to me. Or a gunshot.
I think it was on purpose. And I'll put a video if I think of it.
It sounds like it's a gun or something. It's really weird.
Of course, now there it goes. No, you would think it's a gun.
Between that and the monster trucks, it's kind of ridiculous.
Petromasculinity. Yeah. I had deja vu the other day, and it made me wonder if deja vu was something like, because you keep living the same life over and over again, how would that make you feel about your current life? Would it change anything?
That's kind of a deep question, because like assuming that if you knew what you were doing and you try to change it, you probably wouldn't change it because you're just being you.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
So the Meatless Mondays founder died. He was 90 years old, and I guess he was a marketing executive for many years, which makes sense because he sort of packaged the idea of how do you get people to eat less meat in a way that was, consumable. Like you can understand that. You don't just say, oh, I'm eating less meat. And then, you think you are. Kind of like I say, I'm eating less sweets. And then not at all. But I think the part that's outdated in the advertising is that we now know that it's kind of more lucrative to emphasize what you are gaining, not what you're losing. And so, like if you hear Meatless Mondays, it makes it sound like you're taking away something, which you're just substituting, because there's a lot of delicious, plant-based meats that taste like meat, that are filling. But I am thankful that he existed and thought of this concept, because a lot of people follow that. But as I said in another episode, it'd be nice to switch it and have Meat Mondays and then the rest of the days plant-based meats.
So there was an article in the New York Times recently.
No, not an article. It was a quote, and it said, there are two types of people in this world: hosts and guests.
Yeah.
What does that make you?
It makes me a guest in this situation.
So one time we were hiking, and I saw that they had a nature interpreter. I was wondering what that position did. This was filmed at Dripping Springs Natural Area, which I highly recommend you check out and visit. Do you want to say anything about the sketch?
It was first take on that, so work with what we have.
I'm really proud of it, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
All right. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for interpreting our hike today. I'm not sure what that is. I'm really curious. This is my first time here at Dripping Springs. Can you tell me behind you what that is right there? Forest. Cool. That's good. Yeah, keep a distance. Keep a distance. Yeah. Make sure. Oh, yeah, distance. I'm really wondering. I'm seeing these bushes everywhere. Tell me about them. Oh. So your dog, smoking, swimming. What do we have here? That's back up to, okay. I assume this is just extra part, not really interpreting nature. What do we have? Forbidden. What kind of rock are we looking at? Okay, layers. Wow. You can exercise there. What do you store there? Beer. Uh-oh, what happened here? Nature interpreter. What do you say? But what's your interpretation of that, like, from a nature perspective? That's it? We've reached the springs, and our nature interpreters now going to tell us more. You have to go to the bathroom? Riding a horse? Here we are at La Cueva. How do you interpret that? Going back to your people? When you were in caves? And you used to hunt and gather and sleep. Lots of sleeping on this tour. Rowing a canoe. I've learned a lot on this tour about nature, interpretations, the hazards of loose interpretations, sticks, caves, sleeping, ready for the world. We also have on this show, we're really excited, a special guest. Some say my uncle. In Greece, he would be my uncle because if somebody's a little bit older than you or, you know, around your parents' generation, they would be your aunt or your uncle, right?
Sure.
But I guess here it's cousin. So we call each other, well, I call him Kuzgul. Steve actually lives in Albuquerque with his wife, Robin. Mm-hmm. So the first visit I made to New Mexico was actually, you know, when I was probably, I don't know, 20 or 21, to visit him when they lived up near Santa Fe. He's a fascinating person. He built a guitar for me, for you. You also have one of his guitars.
Exactly, yeah.
He's built many guitars for several famous musicians, and he just does such a good job. You know, his attention to detail, his artistry.
He's fun to talk to.
Yeah, you'll hear that in the interview. So he's had several careers, you know, working on a 747, to working in a foundry, to being a knife salesman.
He even built, I think, a tiny house on wheels before it was popular.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Meat market best boy. I should have asked him about that. And background actor.
Steve inspired me to be a background actor.
What is your earliest memory?
I think I was 5 years old and I fell into a ditch. And I remember being scared and having to have help to get out.
Did anybody help you?
No, I'm still there. Well, I do remember going to the ocean a lot with your side of the family, with your Papa Dick. What the most wonderful man in the whole wide world, in my opinion.
I miss him.
A sweetheart of a man. I remember us go because they were brothers. My dad and your papa were brothers. So they did things together and they brought us along to the ocean. I remember that. Seaside. I was really close to Rick. Rick and I would hang out and we would paint models together and get high on the dope from the paint. I absolutely idolized your Uncle Rick.
Why is that?
Idolized him. I don't know. It's just something about him because he was so cool, a talented musician, and he just spoke cool. And he's, you know, a couple years older than me. I just loved him.
What would you say is kind of your earliest musical memory?
I got my love of classical music first from your papa, my Uncle Dick, because I would listen to him practice on the violin. When I was like 10 years old or 12, I actually paid for this club called the Columbia Music Club or whatever you send away for records. I actually bought a collection of classical music that way. My mother, Eileen, had a piano. She was actually trained as a pianist. Yeah, we owned a piano and she played. As a matter of fact, we inherited her piano.
What do you think the role music plays for humanity?
The vibration of music, you know, good or bad, to me is extremely powerful. And that's why I'm sort of in the music business. I was able to create some kind of a medium that this stuff that I love is played through. It has the power to soothe people, to get them riled up. You know, it goes both ways. I make the tool of the trade.
How would you say being a father changed you?
It might have taught me a little bit of responsibility, but I don't think I was a very responsible father. Maybe I would have been even less responsible. I raised my kids kind of crazy. You know, let's go live on a commune. Okay, let's go live in a bus, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, I was a workaholic and probably to an unhealthy extent. It was kind of probably a macho thing because I worked in like the foundry for 10 years. And that's one step above a coal mine.
Wow. What does one do at a foundry?
I was a molder. You make molds of things, you know, steel things, and then we poured the metal. Some small stuff, some big stuff. and the metal is 3,000 degrees. So it's kind of a hot place to work. I was this macho wannabe dude, like, oh, I don't care how hot it is. I don't care how I'm, trying to have kind of a contest with my other workers to see who could do the most. Stupid stuff. Right out of high school at age 18, you had to be 18 to join Boeing. I graduated in 66, and at that time, Boeing was really hard up for people in Seattle at Renton on the 727 factory. And after about a year and a half, they built the plant in Everett for 747s, and they were looking for volunteers. And so that's when I went to the Everett place in 68, I think. I'll never forget it. We were putting the skin on the frame of this very first wing of the very first 747. It was a big deal. They never made one before. What happened was the economy in Seattle really slowed down. Sales went off on aircraft and they started laying people off. I'll never forget it. There was a sign that said, "We're the last one out of Seattle. Please turn out the lights." That's how bad it was. So that's when I left Boeing.
You were a snake farmer at some point, and I never know exactly what that means. But
I met this guy. I can't remember where I met him. He wanted somebody to go with him to buy snakes, rattlesnakes, so he could milk them for the venom, because the venom was being used as an anticoagulant in surgery. I said, okay, I'll go along. I was just his driver. They weren't cheap, like 50 cents a pound.
Where'd you put them?
In boxes. We built boxes.
Oh, and they were still alive.
Oh yeah, it had to be alive.
Okay.
Snakes can hibernate for months and have no water, no food, nothing. But a few of them would die. The people who sold the snakes to him called on people back in California and said, no, this guy isn't cool. And so they put out a warrant for him. I think we went our separate ways.
Oh, he sounds like the kind of guy who's probably dead by now.
Could be. He was a real con man.
How did you start to realize that you had this talent in woodworking?
For some reason, when I was in the foundry and I would build tables and stuff for us to dine on, the upper echelon didn't like me doing that, so I quit. But I had a friend, he would make these little crafty things. And he said, you want to do this with me? And I said, okay, I'll do that with you. Interestingly, I learned how not to do things in retrospect from him. Anyway, that's where I got my interest in woodworking. And there was an ad for a cabinet shop called Superior Custom Cabinets. And that was my first professional job in cabinet making. I met Jimmy, and he was from Montana. And he got me a job at this place called United Pre-Stress. It twisted my knee on that job and went into rehab, and that's where I met Robin. I really fell for her because she really had something special about her. She had moved to Missoula she's a Santa Fe original.
That's really cool. That's such a cool story too. And just like her role in sort of like healing and you meeting her at that time. And so you guys moved to Seattle. That's when you got the cabinet making job. When did you start dabbling in making musical instruments, and how did that come about?
I was working for a high-end cabinet shop in North Bend, Washington. We were making the cabinets for Master Lou. He's the spiritual leader. And I met Guitar Slim, who you know, on that job. Slim had just come off a world tour, and he was working as a professional painter on the same job. He said, I'm a musician. Come on down and check me out at New Orleans in downtown Seattle. We became friends, and I was still drinking at the time. And I got real drunk, and I said, hey, Slim, that's a stupid guitar you're playing, or something like that. I can build you a better one. Big talker. That's perfect for the big talker show. The next day or whenever, he said, okay, get to it. Okay. And I'm kind of a man of my word, so I had to learn how to do it. I bought a book on how to do it and a blueprint. And I just followed the blueprint. He's left-handed, so I had to reverse the blueprint. And he still uses it to this day.
I mean, looking at your shop, it's immaculate, and you I always hold it up as an example to Rob to aspire to.
Well, I guess I got the bug. And my little brother, Kerry, and he said, well, could you build me one? And so I did. And then Slim has a lot of people he knows in the music business. He was John Lee Hooker's guitarist for a while.
Wow.
And his bass player, Mark Dalton, somehow I built him a bass because I'm real fond of Mark.
How many guitars would you say you've built by now?
I can only guess. I've never really kept track, maybe 30 or 40. Not that many.
I will never forget when you came to visit us after Dad died and you gave me that guitar, that dedication to Dad. And that was such a beautiful gift. What is your philosophy behind building guitars?
My philosophy is find out what the musician wants and then do it. In other words, if you don't take into consideration what that musician is after, why bother building it? I worked with one guy, a great friend of mine. I built him 3, Mikey Baker. Hands-on dude. Is so fussy he's a virtuoso guitar player in Santa Fe, that I let him shape his neck down to the level that he wanted it. Turned out it was only 15 thousandths of an inch difference in the way I had it. And then if they want something a little special, like their name on it or some special symbol, doing that. And then pickups, what do you want? What kind of sound do you want? The first thing I ask is, what scale length do you want? I think the main thing for my instrument making is it has allowed me to meet some people who have become great friends. I do not have a client who's not a friend. They either are a friend to start or they become my friend.
How long does it typically take to make a guitar?
Oh, I'll spend a whole year. Or I'll spend 3 months, maybe 6 months. Depends.
If somebody watching wanted to, commission a guitar, buy a guitar from you, or start that process, would they just email you?
I built a custom bass for the actor Wes Studi. I did a lot of my design work for him via email because he was in Ireland. The way I met Sean was on the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West. We were between scenes and I tripped on a barrel because this was set in the West, and I had never met Sean before, and he caught me and kept me from falling over. What do you do? I said, I'm a musician. Really? I'm a guitar maker. We got together, became friends, and I said, I can make you a better guitar than that.
That's your opening line.
And I knew he was friends with Wes, and I said, I really like Wes. See if he's interested in a bass, because I knew he was a bass player.
Are there any that stand out that you're the most proud of?
Probably the one I'm working on now, because it's totally different. I guess I'm kind of proud of a bass that I just finished for a gentleman by the name of David Lee Rodriguez. I built him a bass and put his name in turquoise on the fretboard. The people I build for, I give them what I call the friend discount. But the deal is they're all my friends.
So unless they're actively your enemies, you're a background actor. You inspired Robbie to get into it when he was in New York City, which is really cool because it created a lot of interesting memories. You got to know the city.
When we moved to New Mexico, 93, I answered an ad. Turned out it was for a Kevin Costner movie called Wyatt Earp. I had a beard and all, and I looked Old West, I guess.
You do have the Old West look, yeah.
So I had the look, so they hired me to be an extra on Wyatt Earp. I worked several weeks on the movie. It was a pretty good movie, I thought. From there, I got to know the casting directors, who they were, and just started working movies and TV shows. The only time I have ever been nervous around an actor or actress was when I was with Charlize Theron in that scene in A Million Ways to Die in the West. A double Oscar winner and a fabulous actress, and sitting right next to me, and I'm thinking, I better not fart. You get to know what a real actor is when you're around somebody like her, because between scenes, she was joking around with all the other actors. And then when the camera started, it's like she changed into this different person. Bam, went into this character so fast. It was just amazing to see a professional do that.
we talked about this on another show, but what grade would you give life? And what do you feel like is the most difficult thing about being alive?
It's not actually the physical part, believe it or not. It probably has to do with the current atmosphere in the country and in the world, the divisions of people, and learning, what some of your friends are really like. I didn't know that about you, but still caring about them as a friend and respecting why they feel that way. That's probably the hardest part.
You've always been good at connecting with a variety of people who have a variety of views. And, and I think part of that is what you talk about, listening to the customizations even and making guitars. It relates to that same skill set of listening to people. What would you recommend? Because that's one of the things I struggle with too, is like, finding out and knowing like, oh, these particular family members or friends, they supported the last regime, and what did they see in that they liked? But trying to still relate to people as human beings. What do you recommend, or what's been helpful to you through the years in connecting with people with different views?
Well, it's a hard one. It's easy for me because of my personality. I can listen to somebody that's, just totally out there and just kind of nod my head and, that's cool the way you think that, and try to find out why they think that, and say, you know what, that to that person, that is real. And that's the point of view I go from. And they've got their reasons for that being real to them. So it's like, what does it hurt to listen to this and understand it? And also the fact that they might consider my views kind of odd too, if they were to ask.
It's difficult. I think what you're talking about is, there was an article about this yesterday, is motivational interviewing. And it's that idea of, instead of challenging somebody or trying to change their mind, you ask them questions to dive deeper into why they think the way they do. And through that process, they see a mirror, because you're not challenging them. They're able to see themselves, and maybe some of the views are unexamined. Not unexamined, but, like not so examined. Because, people were talking about like anti-vaxxers and, how do you reach them? And, without just saying you need a vaccine. I agree with that approach. And I think like still kind of questioning people gently is good, because then maybe they will come around to seeing if their beliefs cause harm, which, with the trumpets, unfortunately, like he caused harm. But
you are a vegan. You don't push it on anybody, ever. I've never seen you do that. And I've always admired that about you. You've never been preachy. You put the facts out there where they are. You'll say, hey, look at the way these animals are being treated. Look at the way the cows are. Okay, go ahead and make your judgment on the way these cows are crowded in, the way these chickens are crowded in, all of that. It's like, there's a picture of it. Judge for yourself.
I think and I've always admired that in you, because, you do have that. And I would call it a curiosity too. That's another thing that interests me about you and other people who continually want to learn. And I think through that, there's sort of like this humble process. You have to put your ego aside to continue learning, because you're new at something sometimes. And then, you get, as you did, you get proficient. The question was around the grade you'd give life. Rob and I gave a grade to life on last episode, and there were two different grades. I'm curious, what grade you would assign.
I don't know. Well, the way I see it, we live on an evolutionary planet. It's like, this is the place to come if you want to put violence on somebody, and to learn not to put violence on somebody, if that makes sense. This is where you're going to have that taken away. You're going to evolve not wanting to put violence on somebody, or seeing how bad it is and how wrong it is. To me, that's the whole purpose of this earth, is to evolve beyond things that we need to grow into or out of. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So almost like a training ground. And I'd wonder for what the overall purpose, of course, that's a big question that we can't necessarily answer, but what does that evolution serve?
Yeah, see, that's why it's kind of hard for me to put a grade on it, because that's what's going on here. It's hard to live here in this environment, with our bodies. all the stuff that can go wrong. Have you seen a medical dictionary?
No, but anytime somebody like a celebrity dies of something, I look it up and I'm like, what is that? How do I avoid it? Is it genetic?
Exactly. And so much can go wrong. But that's kind of a pessimistic view. It could be, but it's also an observation.
So I'm hearing like a C from you.
I don't know if I can grade it because
you're resisting.
Things are going the way they're supposed to go.
Sorry, this will be cut out. That's loud. Stop cracking pistachios. Seriously, I'm serious.
In a trip to White Sands, we decided to do a Def Leppard song. It was Saturday.
Yeah.
So.
Do it again. Because I should have talked in it. I want you to do it by yourself.
Here's a little tour of the downtown Las Cruces so you can just get an idea of how quiet it is. It reminds me of how Durham used to be when we first moved in.
Yeah, 2006 or so.
Again, it's COVID. So we are in downtown Las Cruces. It's downtown, pretty quiet. It's Sunday. Spider-Man. You're coming up on the Rio Grande Theater, Main Street.
It's just food.
Yeah, okay. Just gonna make this one quick today. So I saw something on HSUS's site, I think it was, or the Humane Society of the US, to cut costs because of COVID closure. Some factory farms have used a method that they call ventilation shutdown, basically to kill whole herds of pigs.
Ugh.
And then they throw their bodies into a pile and burn them. But yeah, this is due to COVID, but it's already terrible conditions, so this is just kind of another thing. On a higher note, there's a new guide, a fabulous new guide to being vegan by Jasmine Singer, and I encourage you to check it out. I hope to have her on the show at some point. There's some good news also in this restaurant called, it used to be a food truck, well still is, Slutty Vegan. They're in Atlanta, very popular, they're awesome. They're actually, during the pandemic, expanding to 13 or so more locations. They're targeting locations that don't already have a lot of vegan options. There have also been articles showing recently, and I'll link these, that a plant-based diet is linked to a healthy gut biome, which is actually beneficial. They say the ability to fight COVID and your immune system, which is really cool. Beyond is partnering with PepsiCo, and they're partnering, and some people might be against, big companies, but let me tell you, this is the secret. This is how these products that don't hurt animals are going to be more mainstream and get into the markets and ultimately help animals and the environment. So I applaud that. Also, Taco Bell's adding Beyond, so that will make our Taco Bell adventures on tours and driving much more interesting. Cool stuff. Cognitive disfluency. I heard that term the other day. And
so that's a biggie.
And it was really interesting because basically it's saying that it enhances creativity. So it's something like you're at a coffee shop and there's some music or something playing around in the background because you have this other thing your mind's focusing on, so you're able to do these creative things more. I'm probably explaining this really badly. The research says basically that it prompts people to process information more carefully, deeply, and abstractly. Links below if you want to learn more about cognitive disfluency. But the way I'm taking it is it's good for me to put on my Spotify playlist, even though they don't pay artists enough. So are people boycotting Spotify now? I don't blame you. Rob's renovations. Well, he's here in New Mexico, so there aren't renovations, but we do have some exclusive footage. What are you working on there? It's very dusty down here.
Yeah, I didn't hook the bag up to this. I'm just I'm working on my little stool bench thing, so I could sit on it and contemplate life in the morning.
What's it called?
It's called a stool.
From the USA?
I'm using these traditional Japanese joinery where you're not using any nails or anything, and it goes all the way through, and then you put other pieces in here and you press it in and you sand it down. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing here. And these are recycled pieces from other jobs. This was part of the countertop. This was part of a closet, the dowel for the hanging your clothes, and these are just regular dowels that I had left laying around.
Have you had any injuries?
No.
From making this bench?
Oh, besides my thumb.
You listening to some rock and roll?
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. It's on Spotify.
Rock and roll channel?
Rock and roll and sanding.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good looking bench.
Thanks. I can't wait till I'm done.
Thank you everyone for liking this video, for commenting, for subscribing, for sharing. And we really love to hear from you. So if you disagree with anything, we love to hear from you as well. We are going to be doing episodes maybe a little less frequently since I'm working on a novel.
Stay safe and mask up when you need to. And get the shots if you can.
Oh yeah, get your vaccines.
And don't
Do
jump
it.
in line though.
Don't jump in the line.
We all know that's not good.
Anyway, thanks everybody.
Take care.